How about something a little different? The Maori mere, which is a sort of paddle-like short club. It's made of jade. Pounamu is the word for jade. If I gave points for style and aesthetics, that's what this would rule. Offense, it has some limitations. It's pretty small. You can actually thrust with it. In fact, it's often argued that's one of the main uses, like sort of slashing and stabbing forward. You can also just strike either with the edge or with the flat. You can grapple with it, but because it's so short, you have limited leverage, so it can't hit quite as hard as some of the others here. Defense. It's short and light, so there's only so much you can do, really. I'm going to give it 1.5 because, I mean, against a similar weapon, of course, not a problem, but if you have something longer, there's only so much you can work with to parry with. I mean, basically you need some kind of defensive tool in the other hand, like a shield, that it works, but by itself, not so much. It's lightweight, very maneuverable, not rocket science to use. I mean, I'm sure there are complex techniques you can learn, as with any martial art, but the thing in and of itself is not that difficult. Against armor, I wouldn't expect it to work terribly well, again, because there's not that much leverage, so you probably can't hit extremely hard. The edges concentrate force reasonably well, but compared to the other weapons, I don't think it can quite keep up with that. But where it does, of course, shine is speed, because, again, short and lightweight, so you can swing it at the speed of your arms. That's really not a problem. But for the same reason, it doesn't get a lot of points for reach, of course. I mean, you're almost at punching distance at that point. It doesn't give you much more than the reach of your arms. Versatility, I'd say, is pretty good for a war club. I mean, you can use the edge, you can use the flat, you can somewhat thrust with it. Well, maybe I shouldn't say somewhat. Compared to a pointed weapon, of course, not as well, but should still be quite effective. You can even strike with the other end as kind of a pommel there. Durability is a little bit difficult to score because I don't know exactly what to expect from jade. Like, how easily would that break? I'm guessing it's probably pretty solid. You can crack it if you swing it against something hard and dense, I would guess. But it should hold up reasonably well. Ironically, I think I have to rate the affordability the lowest, actually, because this is a prestigious weapon. This was for a chieftain, and they took great pains to ensure the highest quality. They selected the material very carefully, spent a lot of time polishing it, and it was a very important object. Sometimes they would go to great lengths to recapture it, for example, if it was taken by the enemy. So, yeah, this is not for anyone. And then ease of carry, of course, maximum points. I mean, it's very compact, very easy to have on you, not a problem whatsoever. Well, 29.5 and 18.5. I almost want to fudge the numbers to give it a higher rating because it's so cool, but I would not want to have to fight a studded cudgel or a short war flail with one of these, unless I get a shield too. Then we've got the Native American Spiked Ball Club. So the spike can be made of different materials. It can be bone or horn, but I'm going with the metal version. So offense, as you can imagine, is quite good. 3.5. It can hit pretty hard, and that spike, of course, concentrates force enormously well. The fact that it's curved can also potentially help you get around an opponent's defense. So pretty useful in a number of ways. Defense, I'm going to give it 0.5 point more than the stick because it has more mass. So it's harder for the opponent to displace it. Then ease of use, 4 out of 5. You know, it's fairly simple. I mean, a little bit more complex due to the shape. So you do have to think about alignment to an extent, but other than that, and anti-armor, quite good. I mean, that spike would be very effective. You have a lot of mass at the end. I mean, it's not as heavy as some all-metal weapons, but there is still a good amount of mass at the end there, and with the spike, Speed, I'd say, is not bad, but it's limited a little bit by how top-heavy it is. Reach is alright. Not as long as some of the others, but you do have a decent amount to work with. That really depends on the individual one. I've seen longer ones and shorter ones. Some are really quite short. In fact, I wonder if I should give it 2. Versatility is not bad because you have 2 sides. I don't know if the side without the spike is usually used to strike with, but you could, or maybe the sides of the ball perhaps. So you have blunt impact strikes and you have piercing attacks. Durability should be pretty good as well because it's a fairly massive one. The ones I've seen look like they're pretty thick, so they should withstand quite a bit of force. Affordability, as you can imagine, also quite good because, well, you can carve it out of whatever wood you have available. I mean, ideally dense hardwood, and then you just need to get the spike. That can be a scrap piece. That's not a big deal. And even if all you have is, say, an antler tip, that can also be used. So I'd say it's probably not the most convenient to carry. I mean, it's not terribly long, but it's quite large at the end, and then the spike is sticking out. You can put it on your belt, but there's going to be more in the way when you're moving around in everyday life. I suppose you could attach it to a backpack, but you can do that with other weapons as well. So, yeah, it's not terrible, but could be better. Total score 32, adjusted 21. Definitely respectable. Good day, sir. Would you like to discuss the offensive capabilities of a Goedendag? There's really not that much to discuss. It hits pretty hard, and it can also thrust very effectively, especially for a stick. I mean, a club, but anyway. Not the worst thing to try to keep yourself safe with either. And it's a hefty club. It's quite long, so there's plenty to work with, although it is just wood. So if you have to defend yourself against a blade, it can accumulate damage quite a bit, and there's absolutely nothing to keep your hands safe. But just the fact that you have that much and a good amount of mass without being overly heavy, I think you can work with that pretty well. And it's a spiky stick, so not particularly difficult to use, of course. Effectiveness against armor, can't argue with that either. Not only can you bash it, you can even potentially stab into the gaps of the armor. Being top heavy, of course, it's not exactly nimble, it's not the fastest thing you can use, but with 2 hands, it's decent. Reach, of course, is great. It's not like a full polearm, but some of them are quite long. In fact, they can be a polearm. So, depending on the individual Goedendag, there's quite a bit of variation. It can be basically anything between, I guess, 3 and 5. So, I'm just going to go with 4. Versatility normally would be pretty low because you just bash them with it, right? But the spike adds quite a bit more, which is also more useful up close if someone tries to grapple and disarm you. Yeah, they can hold on to the haft, which is not great, but you might be able to pull it in and use the spike against them up close, so that's good. Durability is pretty good. Yes, it's just wood, but it's pretty massive, and then of course at the end you have the iron spike and collar, which reinforces it, and you can hit with that pretty effectively. And of course, it's quite affordable as well, quick and easy to make. That was one of the main purposes. Not great to carry, though. I mean, it's large, it's not light. I don't think you can really use it as a walking stick. I mean, maybe if it's long enough, but many of them don't look like they would be, so yeah, it's a little clunky. Gets in the way. Total score 33.5, which is second place in what I've rated so far. Adjusted 24, which is third place. Sounds about right. Next up, we've got a large two-handed wooden maul. This would normally be more of a tool. Sometimes a maul can be a tool and a weapon. For example, English longbowmen had mauls, but they were shorter to drive in stakes and also to use as weapons if need be. But we're looking at like the big one. So of course, it's a hard hitter. You would not risk getting smushed by this. Ideally, it's hard to defend against. If someone swings this thing at you full force, yikes. But it's not great to defend with either. For one, it's heavy and sluggish, and also it's made of all wood. You could try to catch an enemy weapon on the iron bands, I suppose, but overall, it's not amazing. Ease of use, well, it's very simple, obviously, but it's so heavy that it loses a lot of points in that department. But then anti-armor, of course, if you hit someone in the helmet, they're going to be out. Their brain might just be mush. Brains are kind of mushy to begin with, aren't they? Anyway, speed, obviously full score, no argument. No, just kidding. Reach, not terrible, not great. It's not like a polearm, but could be worse. With two hands, of course, your reach shortens a little bit more compared to a single-handed war club or something, but I would assume this is a little bit longer, so yeah. Versatility, what's that? I mean, clobber them. That's pretty much it. Durability. Yeah, the haft can break, but otherwise, pretty good. The iron bands, of course, help. Affordability, yeah, it's just a lot of wood with a bit of iron, and there you go. I'm not going to give it any points for carry. I mean, look at the thing. You're not really going to be prancing around with that. You could rest it on your shoulder or something. This is not, no, it doesn't deserve even half a point. It's terrible in that way. The total score puts it dead last, below nunchucks and sticks. That's a bit harsh. The adjusted score of 21 makes more sense, which puts it a little below middle ground. And finally, the Japanese Tetsubo, or iron stick, which is made entirely of metal, unlike the kanabo, which is wood with metal studs. Offense. Can you take a guess? Don't get in its way. It's just all I'm going to say. Defensively, I'm only going to deduct a point from full score because of the mass. It's pretty sluggish, but at the same time, it's very long, so yeah, and you can look at it. I mean, what other weapon is going to knock it aside or damage it or anything like that? You can protect yourself with that pretty effectively. Ease of use, very simple, just clobber them, but the weight brings it down. These things are really heavy. This one here weighs 11 pounds, so easily the heaviest on the list. Armor. Could it be that this is designed to destroy armor? Yeah, a little bit. Speed, like I already said, it's heavy, so not amazing, but the nice thing is you can keep them at bay because it's really long. So it's got the reach covered, no problem. Then versatility. On the one hand, yeah, the main means of attack is just hit them, just bash them in some kind of way. Thrusting, yeah, just like with a quarterstaff, you can do it, even though it doesn't have a point. Pretty terrible in confined spaces, though. And up close grappling, not great either, so that costs it some points. Not as pricey to make as a sword, not as cheap as many other kinds of war club. And then finally, you want to lug this around? I don't. It's huge and heavy, so yikes. The total score is 31, which puts it below the studded ball club. The adjusted score of 26, however, gets it first place of what I've rated so far. This thing would be terrifying in the hands of a strong man. So where are we at? When tallying up the points from all 10 criteria, the Quarterstaff and Goedendag share the first place, followed by the Mace, which I guess shows the value of ignoring ease of use, affordability, and ease of carry to adjust for an alternative score. Sure, the Quarterstaff is good and should be pretty close to the Goedendag, but shouldn't be identical. Personally, I'd rather fight against the Quarterstaff with a Goedendag than the other way around. And the Tetsubo, sure, in the hands of an unskilled person, you just wait for that big overswing and rush in and finish them off. But in the hands of a skilled fighter who's strong enough to wield it effectively, what you call that? A big oof? Overall, I'm pretty happy with the adjusted score, with the exception of the Meteor hammer. I'm not sure it belongs there, but I also find it pretty difficult to really rank it. And the stick gut shafted. I don't know about that. Otherwise, it makes sense to me. If there is enough interest, I'll continue this and just keep raiding a bunch of weapons. This was way more time consuming than I thought originally. I was like, yeah, this should be a relatively fast one. I don't know why I thought it would be fast, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.